Hello everybody, it's Keegan here. I'm back with another video for you guys, and today I'm bringing you guys another edition of Keegan's Movie Reviews once again. And today I'm finally bringing you guys the seventh and final part of the James Bond reviews. Now, last week I uploaded part 6, in which I covered the Daniel Craig era and pretty much all the the remaining films of the official James Bond movies. And today we're going to be talking about the two unofficial James Bond movies, which are Casino Royale, not to be confused with the other one, and Never Say Never Again. Now, these are the two Bond movies that were made outside of the production company Eon, which is the company that's responsible for every single James Bond movies except for these two. And Casino Royale is more of a spoof of a James Bond movie, whereas Never Say Never Again is basically a remake of a Thunderball, the fourth movie. But yeah. Anyways, let's not waste any more time and let's just go ahead and get started. So we're going to start today off by talking about Casino Royale first. This is a comedy film that is directed by not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 different directors, which is crazy to me. And this film was originally released on April 28th, 1967. So this movie actually came out 2 months before You Only Live Twice, which was the James Bond movie that was which came out that year. So this movie came out first. Now, Casino Royale is based on, well, should I say, loosely based on the Ian Fleming novel Casino Royale, which I know I forgot to mention this in the last part, that both Casino Royales were based on the Ian Fleming novel. I should have just pointed that out. While this one is loosely based on the book, though I'm not exactly sure if it follows the book or not, because I actually haven't read any of the James Bond books. And now I know this movie, I think it was the producer or something, but someone involved with this movie got the rights to turning Casino Royale into a movie. And it was originally going to be a serious movie, like a serious Bond movie that they were going to do with Eon Productions, but for some reason they weren't able to do it. So the directors and producers set out to make it a parody film instead. And you got a pretty big cast in this movie too. You got Peter Sellers, Orson Welles, Woody Allen, and even Ursula Andres, who was actually the Bond girl from the very first Bond movie, which was a big surprise. But we'll get to more on this movie in a little bit. But right now we're going to get into the story of the film, and then we'll get into my thoughts on it. So let's take a dive into Casino Royale, the 1967 movie. In this movie, James Bond is a retired agent, but he comes out of retirement to take on the organization called SMERSH and Le Chiffre, and comes up with a plan to take them down by making every agent of his go by the name James Bond. And one of the James Bond has to face off against Le Chiffre in a game of poker. And yeah, that's kind of what the story is about in a nutshell. It's pretty ridiculous. Now, I'm just going to say for the record that this is a very bizarre movie. Like, it's kind of crazy that this movie even exists, and that it's even even though it's not really an official James Bond movie, it can be sort of considered a James Bond movie, but it's just pretty weird. Like it's just basically just a parody movie. That's what it is. But it wasn't a great movie or anything, but it was okay. But I liked these set designs in the movie, and I thought the music was all right too. And I thought Peter Sellers was pretty good too. But the writing and the directing is just really janky and all over the place. Half the time, I didn't even know what the hell was even going on. And it wasn't all that funny, but it did have a few parts that were funny. And I know there was a lot of production hell that went on in this movie because of the feud between Orson Welles and Peter Sellers. In fact, there's a scene in the movie where Lashif and Bond are playing poker, but when they were filming it, they had to do it where Wells and where Wells and Sellers were separate because the feud was so bad that they had to film that scene individually, which is kind of understandable. But despite the big cast and the big budget that went to this movie just wasn't all that great for me. Though I didn't hate it, it just wasn't great either. But it was definitely something, I can tell you that much. But I don't really regret watching this movie. I doubt I'm ever going to watch it again. But at the end of the day, the 1967 Casino Royale is just one bizarre parody of James Bond. And while it's not exactly terrible, it's definitely something. I can tell you that much. But yeah. Anyways, I don't have anything else to add, so I guess I'm going to give the 1967 Casino Royale a 5 out of 10. Now we move on to Never Say Never Again, which was directed by Irving Kershner and was originally released on October 7th, 1983. And this movie actually came out the same year as Octopussy, which was the James Bond film that was released that year, of the official ones at least. Only this movie came out a few months after. Now, this one feels more like a James Bond movie, a more serious Bond movie, and it even has Sean Connery in it too. And this was the first one with Sean Connery in over 12 years since Diamonds Are Forever from 1971. Now, this movie, like I mentioned at the beginning, is basically a remake of Thunderball, which was the fourth movie that came out in 65. So, when I was watching the movie, I noticed it was very similar to that said film, and I didn't realize it till later that this movie is basically a remake, except it has Sean Connery in it as Bond again, but it has a completely different cast, and it came out in the 80s. It even has the movie even has Max von Sydow as Blofeld, Kim Basinger in her breakout role, and believe it or not, it even has Rowan Atkinson in this movie, and this was also his first movie he acted in. Yep, Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean or Johnny English. This was his very first movie, although he had a fairly small role in it, but yeah, it was his first movie, and I was actually very surprised. I didn't when I was watching the movie, and I'm like, that guy looked like Rowan Atkinson, and then I looked it up, and I'm like, no way, it is him. But yeah, that's pretty surprising. Now, the main thing is, this movie, the producer of this movie, who I forgot the name of, got the rights to adapt Thunderball. However, since Thunderball was already out, they had to basically had to remake it and change the title, which the movie's title is actually a reference to what Sean Connery said after Diamonds Are Forever came out, that he said he was never going to play James Bond again. But then, flash forward 12 years later, this movie came out, and he's playing James Bond once again. And the funny thing is, in Japan, the title for this movie in Japan is called Thunderball Again, which is kind of funny because this movie is basically a remake of Thunderball, like I said before. But anyways, we're going to get into the storyline pretty quickly, and then we'll get into my thoughts on it. So let's take a dive into Never Say Never Again. Now, the story for this one is basically the same as the one in Thunderball. James Bond is on a mission to recover 2 nuclear warheads that were stolen that are being threatened to use on the US and the UK. And this time, Bond is trying to capture Blofeld, which is somewhat different because Blofeld wasn't in Thunderball very well. Well, he was barely in Thunderball from what I remember. And it doesn't have the same villain from Thunderball in this movie. It's just Blofeld. But yeah, that's basically what the story is in a nutshell. Basically the same, except one major difference is that it has Blofeld for a majority of the movie. So yeah. I didn't mind Never Say Never Again for what it was. It wasn't a great or an amazing movie, but I thought it was okay for what it was, but it wasn't great either. Um, the action sequences are good, and Sean Connery is great in it. And I thought Max von Sydow did a pretty good job playing as Blofeld in this movie. And some of the scenes in this movie are similar to the ones in Thunderball, only there was no big underwater battle at the end, similar to Thunderball. Sorry, I just couldn't talk today, but yeah, it's not like a shot for shot remake of Thunderball, but it practically is a remake of Thunderball in most aspects, other than some scenes were different, and the villain from Thunderball is not in this movie. It's just Blofeld. But for an unofficial James Bond movie that's not canon to the franchise, it's not bad, I will say, but it's not great either. But it was entertaining at times too. But it's not great. I think I liked Thunderball better, but this one was still good for what it was. But I do find it interesting that it for an unofficial James Bond movie to have Sean Connery in it, who we all know was the original James Bond. It's not bad. I can't really think of anything else to say about it, but it's not bad. I'd probably watch it again. But it was okay, I guess. So I'm giving Never Say Never Again a 6 out of 10. That's that. That's all the James Bond movies, from the official James Bond movies to the 2 unofficial James Bond movies. I've covered them all. I started talking about them back in January, and after 7 parts, I finally finished it. So, yep. But I think that'll be the last time I talk about a big movie franchise for a little while, but I'll definitely talk about more movie franchises in the future, like the Friday the 13th movies and so on. But yeah, guys. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, comment below, subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and share the video with your friends. And what do you guys think of these 2 movies if you've seen them? Let me know in the comments below. But anyways, guys, that's all I have to say. So until next time, this is Keegan Shepard signing off. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And take care, everybody. Peace out. Bye-bye.